Reports from Gaza indicate a tense and grim atmosphere around Al-Shifa Hospital. 5 Al Jazeera staff members, including senior correspondent Anas Al-Sharif, have reportedly been killed following an airstrike launched by Israeli military drones. Sources on the ground confirm the attack occurred while journalists were inside their coverage tent outside the hospital grounds. Suddenly, a loud explosion shook the area, followed by a bright orange flash lighting up the dark Gaza night sky. Eyewitnesses described the blast as sudden and without warning. In seconds, the journalist's tent was destroyed, sending debris flying and thick smoke billowing into the air. Among the victims was Anas Al-Sharif, whose name is now associated not only with courageous frontline reporting but also with the ultimate sacrifice in pursuit of truth. This loss has sent waves of deep sorrow through the media community. Known for his fearless coverage in the Gaza conflict, Anas symbolized the grave risks journalists face in war zones. This tragedy underscores the fragile protection for media workers amid brutal conflict conditions. Hours after the incident, Al Jazeera Media Network's headquarters in Doha, Qatar, released an official statement. They strongly condemned what they described as a deliberate and blatant attack on press freedom. Al Jazeera emphasized that targeting journalists in Gaza is not an isolated event, but part of a disturbing pattern ongoing for months. The network called upon the international community, human rights organizations, and global press freedom bodies to take immediate and decisive action. They stressed the urgent need to halt the ongoing genocide in Gaza and stop the deliberate targeting of journalists. The statement was delivered with a tone of both anger and desperation, reflecting the feelings of the victims' colleagues. Al Jazeera highlighted that the deaths of Anas Al-Sharif and his 4 colleagues are proof that the media is no longer a safe zone but increasingly a target. Public reactions began pouring in worldwide. Several journalism organizations voiced solidarity, condemning the attack and demanding an independent investigation. Yet, so far, there has been no indication of concrete measures to end violence against media workers in Gaza. Anas Al-Sharif was more than just a field journalist. He devoted nearly his entire career to reporting the harsh realities of life in Gaza. Colleagues describe him as calm yet courageous, always on the front lines to tell the truth, regardless of the personal danger. In every report, Anas never turned a blind eye to civilian suffering. He frequently ventured into hazardous areas to deliver first-hand accounts and broadcast images rarely seen on international media. To many in Gaza, Anas was not just a newsbearer but a voice representing their pain. His courage made him a frequent target of threats. Yet, he remained steadfast in his belief that the truth must be told, no matter the risk. Months before his death, he said in an internal interview, "If I stop reporting, who will tell their stories?" His passing leaves a huge void in Middle Eastern journalism. Many view his death as a loss not only for Al Jazeera but also for the global struggle for press freedom. Anas Al-Sharif's name is expected to be remembered as a symbol of courage amid Gaza's darkness. The attack unfolded on a relatively quiet night near Al-Shifa Hospital, although distant explosions echoed intermittently. The Al Jazeera journalist's tent stood in an open area just meters from the hospital entrance. At the time, reporters were preparing live night broadcasts. Around 9:15 p.m. local time, a weaponized drone was detected flying low over the area. Several witnesses reported hearing the drone's characteristic buzzing sound growing louder. Without warning, a missile was launched, striking directly at the tent. A massive explosion shattered the night silence. The loud blast was followed by bursts of orange flames illuminating the dark sky over Gaza. Debris scattered, some falling near the hospital grounds, while thick smoke quickly obscured visibility. Panic ensued within seconds. Medical teams and volunteers rushed to the scene, but the victims' conditions were critical. Among the casualties were Anas Al-Sharif and 4 colleagues, found lifeless amid the rubble. Journalistic equipment lay scattered, some still powered on, showing they were in the middle of broadcasting when the attack struck. This incident adds to the growing list of attacks targeting media workers in Gaza. Despite international laws protecting journalists, in conflict zones like this, they are often directly endangered. News of Anas Al-Sharif's and his colleagues' deaths quickly spread among journalists and the Gaza public. A wave of mourning enveloped Al Jazeera's newsroom, where colleagues broke down in tears upon hearing the news. Some even paused live broadcasts to honor their fallen teammates. Hadi Mahmoud, a senior Al Jazeera correspondent in Gaza, expressed deep grief. In a brief interview, he described Anas as highly dedicated, never retreating despite constant threats. "He knew the risks, but he did it for the truth," Hadi said with a trembling voice. At Anas's family home, tears and embraces replaced words. His father stared blankly, while his mother clutched a photo of her son tightly. For the family, the loss is not just a death, but the shattering of their hopes for Anas's future. Condolences poured in worldwide. Journalists, activists, and politicians sent messages of solidarity. Yet amid all the sympathy, one pressing question remains. When will the targeting of journalists finally end? The Israeli government issued an official statement hours after the strike that killed 5 Al Jazeera staff, including Anas Al-Sharif. The military claimed the operation targeted armed elements operating near Al-Safa hospital. They said the location was being used to conceal militant activities and that the strike was based on intelligence reports. However, the statement sparked widespread criticism. Many argue the rationale does not justify attacking journalists on duty. International human rights groups emphasize that the laws of war strictly prohibit targeting media personnel carrying out their work in conflict zones. Al Jazeera firmly denied Israel's claims, stating none of their staff at the site were involved in any military activities. They reiterated that the tent was solely used for gathering information and broadcasting news worldwide. This controversy has further intensified diplomatic tensions. Several countries are calling for independent investigations, while others demand international sanctions. Yet, there is no indication Israel will change its military approach in Gaza, including towards media areas. Strong reactions have emerged globally. The World Press Freedom Committee labeled the attack on 5 Al Jazeera staff in Gaza as a blatant violation of international law and urged the UN Security Council to take immediate action. Similar calls came from Reporters Without Borders, highlighting the targeting of journalists as a severe threat to global information freedom. Countries like Turkey, Qatar, and South Africa officially condemned the incident. Turkey's foreign minister described Israel's actions as an attempt to silence the truth flowing from Gaza to the world. In Europe, several parliaments called for independent investigations, with some members pressing the EU to consider diplomatic sanctions. In the United States, reactions were mixed. Some Congress members demanded the administration seek answers from Israel, while others remained silent, reflecting the complex political sensitivities surrounding the issue. For the international journalist community, this tragedy is not merely an incident in a war zone. It is a warning sign that journalism is increasingly on the front line where battlefields and newsrooms dangerously overlap. The tragedy of Anas Al-Sharif and his 4 colleagues leaves a profound wound, not only for their families but for the international journalism community. It reaffirms the fragile protection for journalists in conflict zones, despite long-established international legal safeguards. Many fear that without clear accountability, attacks on media workers will become a dangerous precedent for the future. Global silence or passive responses risk enabling repeated violations. Al Jazeera remains committed to reporting the facts from Gaza, even though their journalists face life-threatening risks. They emphasize that truth must not be silenced by intimidation or violence. For them, every news report is a form of resistance against attempts to muzzle the press. The name Anas Al-Sharif is now etched in the hearts of many as a symbol of courage and sacrifice in the pursuit of free information. Amid the smoke of war and diplomatic turmoil, his story reminds us that behind every news report, lives are risked to speak the truth.